Every year since I done been here, she make her nest. Eventually she have her babies. And I guess they swim away. Off to the lake. What's going on? Is Anton from antondaniels.com. I appreciate you guys for continuing to rock with me. It's a rainy Saturday. We've been getting it in, taking care of business. Live stream last night on After Hours. Probably gonna live stream tonight on After Hours. But I'm about to go out and check out some properties and then get some breakfast. Come roll with your boy. I can't figure out whether or not the culture is just incredibly hypocritical on purpose, or if this is like y'all just not noticing what's really happening. The reality is this. I've been listening to all of this conversation and this rhetoric about Candace Owens, for example, dating a white guy. And the conversation has been going on for a while, but it's starting to hit its fever pitch now that she went on the Breakfast Club and Charlamagne asked her the question. And then obviously Umar Johnson decided that he wanted to throw his 2 cents in. Even though she didn't criticize Umar Johnson, she said she'd be open to having a conversation with him. But I realize that Umar Johnson probably actually fears people that would hold him accountable and ask the right questions. I think it's disingenuous, but I don't even want to talk about Umar Johnson per se. A couple different things that we sourced from the Breakfast Club interview that continue to lend itself to more conversation outside of what was happening on the Breakfast Club. First things first, starting to see a lot of conversation about interracial dating as it relates to Candace Owens in particular. I've always asked the question and I've said, listen, and this is to the blackity blacks, you know what I'm saying? Because they're the ones that stand on this. And I see blackity blacks as passport bros, but we'll get into that in a minute. But my question has always been to the blackity blacks because they've never been consistent or had a consensus of what makes you pro-black and what doesn't make you pro-black, right? They've had conversations about whether or not white people can be pro-black. They've had conversations about interracial. But here's the real question. Because I don't stand on the idea of being pro anything except for having good character. If you marry outside of your race, whether you're a man or a woman, does that remove you from being pro anything or being able to even have a conversation about how a community should move, whether or not people are doing things the right way, and whatever it is the solution is, right? Like, I don't think anybody can be excluded from any conversation based off of anything. I think that anybody should be able to say what they want to say, and people should have an opinion. I see black people have opinions on white people all day, every single day. We talk about every single race. We compare and contrast. We have conversations about everything, politics, what happened in this community, and whatever, so on and so forth. But then I'll see these same people say, well, you can't speak on this situation because you're not black. So then that means that excludes you from being able to have conversations about everything else because you're not white or you're not Latino or you're not Asian or you're not any of this, right? But y'all always talking about what Asians is doing and what other people are doing, but then it then removes itself from you because you feel special, I guess, or maybe it's just hypocritical, right? And then Candace Owens. It's funny because I'm starting to see a lot of people switch up. It's a lot of people that's switching up, right? All of the people that used to be against her, all of a sudden, now that they've been dealing with all of these hyenas out here, is saying she the prototype. Prototype meaning that she's intelligent, she don't have a whole lot of butterfly eyelashes, she ain't talking crazy, she actually seems to be educated, fairly conservative, submissive to her husband, and in most ways operate from a traditional perspective of what a man and a woman should be like inside of a marriage. But the caveat, the one thing that they want to take away from her, which that don't matter because they always gonna find something anyway, is the fact that she's married to a white guy. Now, the other part of this conversation is people are trying to make it out to seem like when she was on the Breakfast Club, she tried to make it seem like black men or black people aren't intelligent enough to be able to talk to her. That's false. I actually reviewed that video on After Hours, right? And I went through it because there was people inside of the chat that was insinuating it. And so either people have an inability to be able to think for themselves or they didn't really listen to it and they heard somebody else say it on social media, and then that's where they draw their talking points from, which I think it's a little bit of both. People are sheep. They have an inability to think for themselves. And then also they lean on social media and talking points from other people in order to justify or substantiate their argument, which could absolutely be biased because the person that you may be listening to may be slanted one way or another, and they're not going to disclude themselves or even give you a warning to say, hey, I rock with this person, I might have a little bit of bias against it, so this is where my opinion comes from, but I'm not going to do this, or I'm not going to say this because I actually rock with this person, then this is my perspective, right? And so we're not having a conversations honestly and in truth. She didn't say that, right? And she didn't, as a matter of fact, what I heard, because I watched it multiple different times on a live stream, reviewed it with the people, what I heard was her actually defending black men's rights to be able to do whatever they want to do when they want to do it. Now, I seen one guy on the internet, right? And he was talking about this, and he was having his criticisms about Candace Owens. And boy, was he hypocritical, because one of the points that he was trying to stand on was that Candace Owens shouldn't be talking to a white guy and talking about black issues. But this is a guy that talks about black issues and women, but then he encourages and himself travels abroad in order to deal with women that are not black, aka a passport bro. Now, I know that there's different types of guys that got their passports, and everybody shouldn't be lumped into the same category, similarly to when you talk about relationships, when you talk about politics, everybody, right? Black people, there's all different types of black people. But all I'm saying is, maybe we need to start also considering the source, making sure that we do our own research so we can have our own opinion and have additional context to whatever it is that's being conversated about, and then stop being hypocritical trying to judge other people based off of who it is that they decide to rock with, because it's okay to have preferences. It's okay to have preferences. Now, you may not get what you want, or your preference may be too outsized, and then that's a completely different conversation. But I don't care who you marry as long as you're not ruining the community. Listen, I think that, and when I say community, I'm talking about Western culture, United States of America, wherever it is that I'm living at, not based off of race, right? I think that the biggest problems that we have is single parent households, liberal views, inflation, migrant crisis, and then the fact that the culture continues to be so broken, and that influences everything that we do, from the way that we vote to how we spend our money, based off of the fact that we've been doing it wrong when it comes to our ability to even keep our families together in the first place. There's much bigger fish to fry when it comes to relationships than whether or not the person's skin color, which is something that they can't even control. Whereas when we try to control the controllables, we've been failing miserably, which is why I'm going to continue to keep my hand on, or my foot on, these people's neck, and I'm going to continue to have conversations, and I'm going to continue to give my opinion and my perspective to help these guys be successful. And if they decide to get married, I'm going to give them the blueprint of how to be successfully married. Boy, I can only imagine what it would be like if I had married a white woman. If I had married a white woman, it would be hell on earth. But they don't criticize you. And even though women is going overseas and they getting that D from other people and they doing what they want to do, now all of a sudden we got to remove ourselves from having conversations based off of the idea that because she has a prominent voice, you forgot to look in the mirror, and just because you don't have a huge platform, you typing hard in the chat and criticizing other people, when in reality, she's right. The only thing I care about is truth. The only thing I care about is whether or not we actually having a conversation in truth. Is she right? Is she telling the truth? Is she giving the game based off of the reality of what people are going through, how our families are messed up, whether or not we vote in the right way, who's the best candidate, are we paying attention to the politics, then are women out of control when it comes to who it is that they choose to have kids with? Is she right? That's the question. We always want to question and grill based off of preferences, but we never had a conversation based off of truth. And the question that I always ask myself, and it comes back down to this, is she right? And then we can start having a conversation based off of context after that. I love you guys. I appreciate you. I'm about to go out and check out these properties. Just got done gassing up and getting some breakfast. I'm going to holler at y'all on after hours tonight.